nobody in India, or I think the rest of the world, really knew that this was going to be an impact of absolutely gigantic scale, and that it would last for as long as it has. We didn't know about that. So young people, like everywhere else in the world, were taken by surprise. Their learning journey was disrupted, just came to a stop, because schools, our training centers, everything had to be closed because we had a lockdown. There was a national lockdown. And that went on for a long time. And although in India, we have over 50 million internet users, and it's mostly through mobile phones, the large part of the young, rural, or the economically challenged people use the internet, but it's through their mobiles. And that mobile is perhaps shared by a family. And therefore, the young person doesn't have a dedicated mobile to himself or herself. And the mobile became actually the new school, or the new way to access learning, because everybody went digital. So did Tata Strive, the organization that I work with. Schools started quickly transitioning to online learning, to digital learning. Teachers had to be quickly acquiring skills on how do I teach when I can't see the person in front of me face to face and it's through a screen. How do I make it interactive? These were all the struggles that they had. But very quickly, people moved to online learning, so did we. And I believe that the way forward will be a sort of midway blended learning. And that process is still on. But so for students who had access to connectivity, they could continue their learning through digital means. But what this pandemic also did is highlight the very glaring gap between the haves and the have-nots. And those who did not have a mobile phone themselves had to completely halt their education. And many of them still do. I would say, at least in Tata Strive's universe, where we deal with, 40, 50,000 students in a year, we are reaching out. About 20% of them do not have a dedicated mobile which they can use to learn. And therefore, we had to find other means to reach to them with actually delivery of papers and notes, etc. But those that did use their mobile, one of our surveys showed that they were willing to learn through the mobile, but they could spend about 2.5 hours a day. That's it. And that was at odd hours, because if the father took the mobile away to work, because that was more important for the father to have the mobile, the student had to wait till the end of the day when the father returned from work. So we had to adjust our learning capsules to suit the availability of the students. That was the first thing that happened in the learning journey. And that also students did struggle to adapt to this. Many learned it quickly, but they did struggle. In our case, where we teach hands-on training, we teach them to work with equipment. We train them on it. So an electrician needs to be training on circuits. It can't be done digitally. That was a struggle for us, which is why we moved to blended learning. When there was an opening up of the lockdown was discontinued, we opened our centers to do a little bit of training, or we saw how we could give projects at home. So everybody was being very creative about how they could help students continue their learning journey. But it is a struggle. It is still a struggle. But this is also, I think, will bring about an increased adoption of digitization, and what would have taken us 10 years to wait for will happen now. So I guess the future will be better. The other thing that happened was a lot of migration. In India, about 50% of the workforce actually migrates to other locations, mostly from rural to urban. And because the urban cities were hit first with the pandemic, many of the workforce actually went back, and then they were without jobs. So the unemployment has actually gone up to about 6 or 7%, according to some reports. It stands at 6 to 7% today. In our survey, 50% say that of our young population says that they will come back after 6 months when the pandemic is over. But about 30% may not come back. They may be disillusioned or would prefer to look for rural jobs. And therefore, rural jobs have gained significantly. and also new kinds of jobs. So there's a shift in the kind of jobs that are going to come post the pandemic.